So what was that moment that you changed your life and not in a good way?
That would
When
be...
when you started making those wrong decisions.
Yeah, I was just hanging out with the wrong crowd, and before I knew it, I was getting mixed up in doing the things that they were doing, which was partying on the weekends, and then I would show up for church the next day, and then that started turning into making the poor decisions of breaking and entering and committing theft and burglary. And that led to me standing in a courtroom. That's whenever everything started, for me, I started to realize that, okay, I've gone too far down this path and there's no getting out of it.
Were you with friends when you were doing this, or?
So-called friends?
Yeah, so-called friends.
So-called friends that I thought,
They introduced you to it?
They introduced me to it, and I just wanted to fit into a crowd that I didn't fit into. I just wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be accepted. And that's what led me down that path.
What was going through your mind when you were breaking in?
I think I was just blinded to the sin that I was committing. I felt, of course, you feel that rush of adrenaline, and in that moment, I knew that I wasn't supposed to be doing that. I knew that it was wrong. But what really mattered to me more was fitting in with that group of people, and I don't know why. It's just something that the flesh wanted.
Justin, tell me about the time that you were breaking and entering, and you knew that this would probably be the last time you were going to do it, that you were going to stand in front of a judge. Do you remember that time?
I remember the next morning, because I was still living at home at this time. And I was a horrible criminal. Like, I was not good at lying. And the next morning, because I came home late that night, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning is whenever I showed up. My mom waited up. And the next morning, all the stuff that we stole, which was money, all of it was sitting in my trunk. And the next thing I know, the cops show up at my house. And I'm lying straight to their face. I'm lying to my mom that's standing there next to me.
What was going on inside of you at that time?
If I was hooked up to a lie detector, they'd be like, "This kid's lying," because it would be all over the map. And my heart was racing, and they were telling me that they had me on camera, and I was like, "You don't have me on camera." I was just lying straight to their faces. And at the same time, I was just feeling this flood of conviction. So the Holy Spirit was convicting me, and I was trying not to make eye contact with my mom that is staring a hole into my into my soul. And so whenever I showed up at the police department later that afternoon with the money, I was like, "I lied to you, and I'm coming clean."
So was it the Holy Spirit telling you to do that, or did you just?
I think the Lord was convicting me through the Holy Spirit, 100%. It wasn't like I told my mom and confessed to her. I just remembered, I did confess to her, but it wasn't like I confessed to her and then she said, "Well, you need to go down there." I'm like, "I don't want to go down there." It wasn't like that. I just remember telling my mom, "Listen, this is something that I did, and I need to go down there and make this right." And so I remember going down there with my mother, and I remember that the police department, they were already off my tail. They were already deciding that it was someone else, because they believed my story.
So they didn't have you. Yeah, they didn't have you on camera.
They didn't have me on camera. I think they were just bluffing, but it worked. So they got me. And so I went down there, and I remember, I can't remember exactly when or how much time had passed between committing the crime and then standing before the judge, but I do remember that it was the first week of July whenever I stood before the judge.
So they didn't arrest you right away, and you didn't go to jail or anything like that?
No, they were pretty lenient on me.
Okay.
I would say that they were pretty lenient on me. I was riding in the front seat of the cop cars, and they didn't put me in handcuffs, and my mom was with me a lot whenever, this was all going on. And
how old were you?
I just turned 18.
Okay.
I had just turned 18, partying on the weekends with my friends, and I was abusing alcohol and smoking, and you name it, sex before marriage. I was just going down a deep, dark hole. And I remember my mom sharing this story with me whenever I got booked at the police department or at the sheriff's department. This was after I saw the judge, because the judge said, listen, well, let me back up just a little bit, and then I'll get to the story about how my mom was really upset when she saw me at the sheriff's department. She saw me sitting on the bench rather than sitting in a cell because she was mad that they were that lenient on me. And so, but let me back up a little bit. I remember being before the judge and the judge looking at me, and kind of like you are now, you're curious about the story, curious about the backstory. And so here's a judge that has never seen me before, and he's looking for a record that doesn't exist, first-time offender. And he said, okay, tell me about yourself, because I've never seen you before. You've never done anything there's not a record on you. So why don't you tell me about yourself? And tell me if both of your parents are in the picture. Who brings in the income in your household? And so I started answering these questions, and it was almost like you could hear the gears in his head turning. And he made a decision that day. He said, listen, I'm going to give you a choice. You can have a felony on your record. You stole enough for it to be a felony. So you can have a felony on your record and go to jail today, and you could probably get out in 6 months if you're on good behavior. But I'd also like to give you another choice, another option, and that is join a branch of military, do a lot of community service. You're still going to have to go down to the police station. You're still going to have to get your mugshot taken. It's going to be very uncomfortable. You've never done anything like this before. They're going to have to take your fingerprints and all this stuff. And so I took that second option, join the military. But whenever they took me down to the sheriff's department to book me, they never put me in a cell. So they just have me sitting on this bench, kind of like in a holding area, where they already taken my fingerprints, and they've already taken my picture. And my mom comes down to the sheriff's department, and she was like, "Why is he just sitting there on the bench?" Like, well, we're just book him in and book him out. Like, it's gonna be a really quick process. She said, "No, he needs to feel the full consequence of this. Put him in the cell over there and handcuff him." And my mom was that's how my mom was. Like, we never got off easy. She was tough as nails, but also loved us very much. It was all out of love. And she wanted the best for me. And
did she already know your choice and what you chose to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
She did. And so fast forward, so this was 2004 whenever I saw the judge. And there was a little bit of a waiting time between being in the courtroom and then actually deploying to, or actually leaving for boot camp, which was August of 2005. And so that's whenever my contract actually started with the U.S. Navy.
So tell me what happened within that year, and did you behave yourself?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I would say that I did, because that was a huge wake-up call for me. And I knew that my time at home was short. It was limited. My time with my friends was short and limited. So I hung out with friends that were a good influence on me. I was still going to church. I got a job that kept me busier, and which was actually a job with my dad. He was in sales and petrochemicals out in the Dow Chemical area, and so I was a helper at an epoxy coating company, and so that's what I did. I worked 12 hours a day, and so whenever I got home from that, I was just too exhausted to think about anything else but, going to sleep and writing some music, and so